Feels like those glory days of Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run or even Flushed Away are behind them, but Aardman Studios continues to come out with films in the US to generally middle-of-the-road reception. I mean, hey, the studio continues to do very well in England where it's founded, but here stateside it continues to see declines in income with every release. I mean, their 2012 release, Pirates! Band of Misfits, there's an exclamation point after the Pirates, only made 31 million, and then in 2015, Shaun the Sheep only made 19 million despite the fact that it had an 81 Metascore. And now with their newest release, Early Man, Aardman has brought back Nick Park, their founder, who hasn't directed anything for them since Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit back in 2005. I don't think it does enough to really buck the trend here in the United States. Early Man brings the audiences back to the time of man's creation, I guess, when all two dinosaurs named Mike and Ed are wiped out from the earth by a soccer ball size and shaped asteroid. But luckily the humans that were absolutely alive during the time of the dinosaurs survived, and they found the game of football. As the film puts it, a few ages later, we find Doug, who's voiced by Eddie Redmayne, who you'll probably know from Jupiter Ascending. He leads a tribe of cavemen who live in a little valley and are minding their own business when suddenly they're interrupted by a group of people from the Bronze Age. Naturally, they want to mine out the valley for bronze, and the only way for Doug to stop them is to gather up his group and beat them in the holy game of football.
The arena's this way!
So throw your sticks and throw your stones, cause you ain't gonna break my bones. Huh?
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous, but that's also kind of been Aardman's sense of humor, and it works decently enough for what is a pretty basic children's film. Really, when you get down to it, it's just another underdog sports story that is supported by characters who are pretty two-dimensional. I mean, it kind of says something about the strength of the characters when one of my favorite characters was Mr. Rock. Yes, he was a rock. And Doug has a pet pig named Hognob, who I was really disappointed wasn't very interesting and was just kind of one note the whole time. Especially considering what Aardman has done with Shaun the Sheep and Gromit in the past, who were two of their best characters. When they had Maisie Williams, Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, to be the romantic interest, and you know, she doesn't get much development either because she's barely in the movie. And we do have the villain voiced by Tom Hiddleston, Loki. Of course, certainly not as memorable as Loki. He's also just pure evil, which, to be fair, does lead to some funny moments and just the ridiculousness of how unredeemable he is. But that combined with all the other characters and how two-dimensional they are, it just, again, leaves it as just fairly average kids' material.
Right, grab a spear.
Oh, it's pointy.
Obviously, where the film tries to make most of its money is through the humor. And since the film's based around soccer, some of that is not really going to translate well for the American audience. Not all the humor, but a good chunk of it does lie around knowing the sport and even some modern jokes thrown in around popular teams and players that probably not everyone's going to get since it's not as popular here. Even if you do get those, there's a lot of just absolute groaners. I mean, I don't want to bring up all of them, and I couldn't remember all of them if I tried, but I mean, just a few like, oh, duck! Oh no, just kidding, there's an actual duck. And that happens 3 different times in the movie, and there's a handful of other ones that it's just you see coming from 3,000 miles away. But there were some times here and there that I felt like Nick Park's, kind of zany touch was helping. A lot of it's not laugh out loud stuff, but you can conjure up a little bit of a smile when you see some shop names like Flint Eastwood or Jurassic Pork. And then there's one thing where messages are relayed through message birds, but of course the message birds act like a telephone and they relay the message exactly as they received it, often including the physical motions that the sender did, and that was kind of funny sometimes. So overall, it was just very hit and miss throughout the film, but it did hit just enough that I never was totally bored. And the best parts for me did come at the end of the film in that final match when they bring in the royal commentators who announce the match, throwing out puns left and right that just reminded me of the rats back in Chicken Run.
You leave my tribe in peace!
How dare you? Oh. I'll take him away and kill him. Slowly. Ah, idiots.
And still, even when the jokes were missing and I didn't really care about the characters, it's just Aardman's animation style is almost impossible for me to not be impressed with, no matter what the movie's content is. I just constantly marvel at the fact that almost everything you see there is handmade. And the characters, even as simple as they may be, still have a diverse number of expressions and movements that I can't even imagine what work went into posing them all and forming the mouths for every syllable of every word. And it makes me appreciate some of the over-the-top slapstick humor just a little bit more. And the environment's just as beautiful with every little meticulously placed tree and bush. So Early Man, it's a kid's movie through and through that relies on stereotypes for people to get attached to the characters and has a very basic plot. But it's not totally brainless. I think even adults or those like me not in the target audience can laugh every once in a while and enjoy it if they're just in the mood for something simple.